guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Caroline and I am a fourth year medical student in New York City. And today I thought I'd talk about how I approach studying for step one. And just for a little bit of context, the way that my school is organized is we have 1.5 years of preclinical and we don't take step one right after preclinical. We actually do clinical year and then we take step one and go right into step two studying. That's typically how it goes. So I think generally, for most schools at least, people do take step one right after preclinical when hopefully like that knowledge of all the preclinical stuff is still fresh in their minds. For me, it was a little bit of like relearning a lot of stuff when I was taking it. So hopefully this video will be helpful regardless of when you guys take it. Just in general, for step one and step two, I feel like those were a couple of the hardest tests I've ever taken. I say this just so to you guys watching, like if you also are having not the most fun time studying for step one, that's completely okay. And honestly, you just need to pass and you need to learn the material. I think it'll be helpful for your fund of knowledge if you're entering clinical year. And then also helpful for your fund of knowledge if you're taking this right before step two. So like regardless, I think do your best on step one. I think for me, it was really helpful to watch people's specific study plans and strategies and what resources they use. And honestly, also the trajectory of their scores to help me feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit less anxious about if things aren't really going the way that I'd hoped. For step one, I took around 5 weeks to study for this. I took my baseline assessment, which I would recommend that anyone do, on the 28th of December. Our clinical year ended just like a week or a week and a half before that, like right before Christmas. And so I was like, okay, break for the holidays and then start studying the 28th. I mainly focused on UWorld, supplementing learning with Dirty Medicine, who was a GOAT. Like his videos were so helpful. I didn't use his videos in preclinical or any time before, but they were surprisingly helpful for me for step one studying. So I would watch him if you find that his style suits you. I know some people do Boards and Beyond or Sketchy or Anki. I tried a couple of those. They didn't really work for me. So I always wanted to be an Ankier, but it just didn't work out. Maybe one day, maybe like in residency when I'm studying, I'll become an Ankier. But for this, I mainly relied on UWorld, Dirty Medicine, the CBSSA exams, and the free 120s. One other resource that I forgot to mention was my first aid book. So during clinical year, I was a UWorld girly. I definitely also used Amboss for its library, but not so much for its questions. And so for step one, I kind of just stuck with UWorld. I think either QBank should be fine, and either of them have like more than enough questions that you need to do to hopefully feel comfortable taking the actual exam. I bought the step one QBank for 180 days plus the self-assessment form 1 and 2. So each one of those you get access to for 2 weeks. So if you're thinking of maybe re-reviewing an exam more than 2 weeks after, you might have to like repurchase or renew it. So I would just make sure that you keep that timing in mind. As for the number of questions to do per day, I wasn't the kind of person who was like, okay, every day I'm going to do 80 questions or every day I'm going to do 160 questions, which is a lot of questions. I kind of just did it based on the amount of time that I had that day because I was trying to balance other things too. Our school fortunately has a very robust, super supportive medical education office. And so we had this meeting at the end of clinical year or near the end of clinical year about how to approach step studying. And so what is recommended is kind of counter to what I thought. So initially I went ahead and I was like, okay, I'm going to max out on questions every day. I'm going to do randoms and just like mix those in because that's what the real exam is going to look like. But the advice that we got from our learning specialist was actually, it might be helpful to start off limiting yourself to max 80 questions a day. And for these 80 questions, it's not just doing them, it's really reviewing them and really understanding what the point of those questions is. In addition to limiting to 80, they recommended actually doing it by topic or subtopic. At first, I was like, if you do it by subtopic, won't you know the answer? Just because, if you have 5 choices and only one of those choices is within that subtopic, then wouldn't you just know to choose it? And the answer is like, yes, perhaps, but the idea isn't necessarily to just get the question right, it's to really understand it. And so by grouping it by subtopic, it can help you figure out the specific learning points of that question a little bit more easily versus if you just do them random, you could jump from like cards to something in pathology to like a biochem question. So like it can jump all around. It can be a little bit less easy to follow. And if you're tired from doing questions, then just watch something like a Dirty Medicine video or a Boards and Beyond video or a Sketchy video if that's something that's helpful to you. I'll call day 0 the day that I took my first CBSSA exam. Score-wise, I got a 66% total equated percent correct, and the probability of passing for that would be 95%. So baseline, 95% chance of passing. I was feeling okay about that. I wanted to go into the exam feeling confident that I would pass. So the advice I got was, 70% across 2 to 3 tests, you probably should be okay. I spent the next couple of days reviewing the exam and trying to just learn as much as I could from that exam. So I mentioned that first week, it was actually the first week and a half that I just did random questions. I did a random number of questions as well. And I felt like I really wasn't learning that much. I was just doing it for the volume. On day 7, I took another practice assessment. I wanted it to be the same length as a Step 1 exam. The CBSSAs, they're kind of not half length, but they're a couple of blocks short of the full length. And so I wanted to make a self-curated full length. And what I did was I did CBSSA number 27 plus the first 2 sections of the first UWorld self-exam. And so that was a full length exam. I got 70% on the CBSSA, 68% and 53% on the 2 sections for UWorld. And then I kept doing things just the way that I was doing it randomly. I don't know how much I was learning from doing it like that. And it wasn't until I spoke with one of my friends who was also studying for Step 1 that I started changing my approach a little bit. We were on the same meeting where they recommended doing things by topic and subtopic and not doing so many questions at once. They actually recommended I think 10 questions at once, and I was doing 40. And she was like, they had recommended this for shelf studying and it really helped me for PEDS, for example. And I was like, oh, maybe I should change my studying technique. And so I started doing UWorld by pathology or by neuro or by really specific subtopics. So for neuro, I would do CNS infections, demyelinating diseases, headaches, and do a cluster of 4 to 10 questions at once. And then if you do things by subtopic, definitely mix in review days, cumulative review days of any incorrects that you've gotten. I took another CBSSA Form 28 and paired this with UWorld, the second half of that first form, so 2 sections for self-curated full length. And again, I got a 70% on the CBSSA and a 65% and 55% on UWorld. And then, I basically took CBSSA 29, 30, 31, and I got 75%, 73%, 74%, which were all 99% chances of passing. And then for UWorld number 2, I got a 71%. And then the day after, I took the free 120, which I've heard is the most representative, and I agree with that, and I got a 75%. So at this point, given the trajectory of scores that were mostly stable, above 70%, I felt comfortable going in to take the exam. And for probably a few days or a week, I was going back and forth between moving my exam. I was like, oh, is it worth it just to move a couple of days because the fee is so high? But I would say, given this is such an important exam and your mental state while you're taking the exam is really important, I would say just do whatever makes you feel most comfortable. It is a lot of money to prepare for these exams, to register to take the exams, and to reschedule the exams, but it's really up to you. I would say if I could go back and tell myself, I would just say Caroline, it's okay. If this will make you feel better, then just move it up, even if it's a couple of days. Otherwise, worrying about it is just going to cause more stress and distract you from studying. And that's something I read on Reddit. I think someone posted, is it worth it just to move it back a couple of days? And then someone was like, oh yeah, I moved it back just a couple of days and it made me feel so much better. And I feel like the same goes for moving it forward. I think the issue here was also that I was afraid that the longer that I waited to take the exam, the more information would leak out of my brain. I felt like I was gonna forget a lot of the things that I learned if I just waited a few days. In hindsight, I don't know how true that is. I don't think that's true. It's not like I'm waiting a month or 2 months, but in the moment it felt like it was true. So if that's something that you're worrying about and it would make you feel better to move it, then I would say move it. But it is a conversation just to have with yourself and your advisors and your family if they are helpful in making these decisions. Okay, so that was my Step 1 studying overview. And honestly, for me, it was helpful to see people's trends, and so I wanted to just provide another data point out there. I'm actually going to do my Step 2 study plan as a part 2, so keep a lookout for that, and hopefully this video was helpful, and please let me know if there's any other questions that you have. Oh, also, I passed step 1. I think that's helpful to just explicitly say. But yeah, okay, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!